Hello, welcome to this key tutorial points memo for the tutorial we held on September the 3rd. This is going to be the last of the tutorial key points because of course there are no more regular tutorials, but there is the revision tutorial, and if you can at all possibly do it, please do come along to that. It'll be in effect an all-day tutorial, and we'll be going through the whole course. I'll be highlighting those areas that you don't need to worry about, and highlighting the topics which most frequently come up. So we'll do a review of the course, we'll do the issues of problem questions and dealing with essay questions. We'll talk about the practicalities of revision and of the exam day itself, and then there is, and it's entirely voluntary, a 45-minute unseen question that you can work on, and we'll discuss the answers and how to answer it afterwards. It's not going to be appropriate to do a video after that, but I will be putting up lots of materials, and I'd encourage you particularly to look at your emails and to look at Washminster, because I'm going to be using Washminster a lot for putting up videos and articles that are relevant to the exam. So as for what we did on September the 3rd, we did working groups. The list on the agenda I sent to you, we looked at those topics, and people using the manuals, the other course books, did short presentations after doing really what was a little bit of revision, highlighting the key points. And of course, when you are revising, that's what needs to do. Look at a specific area, highlight the key facts, the procedures that may need to be followed. Of course, an example will be the procedure to go through when considering direct effect, or the procedure that you would go through when looking at a free movement of goods question. Look at some of the debates there are around issues, and working out solutions to problems. So we use nothing more than the books that you've got available. I know there can be a temptation to rush out to the local library and get loads of law books. You've got all you need there. Make sure that you are looking at it, condensing it, and drawing out those key points. So we looked at EU institutions. There was a description of the key institutions, how they are made up, the terms that are served, and the roles that each of the institutions plays within the European Union. We considered the role of each institution within the legislative process. We discussed the whole issue of democratic legitimacy, noting that the European Parliament is directly elected. You and I had the opportunity in 2009 to go and vote for who our MEP would be. Other institutions are indirect, in the sense that the council is made up of members of democratically elected governments, but we haven't actually chosen that specific minister. And the commission, again, appointed by the elected representatives of national governments. Then of course there is the issue of the supremacy of EU law. So we went through EU institutions, and so one group reported back on that. Then we did another group looked at the EU's legislation, and I asked them to describe primary legislation: the Treaty on the European Union, the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, the two primary pieces of legislation. And I suggested it's worth not reading every word in those treaties, but setting out for yourself a map of where the key areas are, and highlighting, of course, those particular treaty articles that you've dealt with in the course. And of course the rules that apply to primary legislation when it comes to whether there is direct effect. The other thing, of course, was to report back on secondary legislation. What are regulations, what are directives, what are decisions, and explain how the type of secondary legislation has an impact on what you need to consider when considering direct effect. The third topic, actions before the Court of Justice, and here I ask people to list and describe direct actions and their procedures, and then to describe and explain the procedure for indirect action. Next area was enforcing individual rights over EU law. So be able to explain the essentials for enforcing rights having direct effect. Then explain indirect effect, and then explain the essentials of the Frankovich principle. There was another working group on the single and or internal market. And what I was looking for here was explain the economic theory of integration. What is a customs union? What is a common market? And what is an economic union? Outline the historic development and explain the judicial and legislative approaches to achieving the single or internal market. Session on free movement of goods, a session on social policy, a session on personal mobility, a session on business mobility, and finally a session on competition law. So I will send you the paper that I used as my notes. If you don't get that because you're not one of my tutorial group, again, email me on jddavidmorgan@googlemail.com and I'll happily send it out to you. Okay, well, all the best with getting the final TMA off, and most of all with your revision. Okay, bye.